What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name's Paul Brettel. I'm the site editor over at Dairyland Express, where we cover the Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and Badgers. I also have a new article out every Monday and Friday over at Cheesehead TV. And as it says at the bottom of the screen here, you can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. So, off season's here, and for today's episode, we're going to be discussing the salary cap. I know, incredibly exciting stuff, but I wanted to provide a high-level overview of where the Green Bay Packers are, how they got here, and some moves, things to watch for as this offseason unfolds. Because as we all know, Green Bay Packers salary cap situation is going to play a huge role in how this offseason plays out. So as always, this is in article form. You can find the link below or head over to Dairyland Express. It's titled Your Guide to the 2022 Green Bay Packers salary cap situation. So let's begin with how we got here. 2020, the NFL league-wide salary cap was $198.2 million. However, because of no fans in the stands or a lack of fans for the most part that season, last season that salary cap number dropped to $182.5 million. So the salary cap over the last decade has pretty much been increasing every year. So seeing it drop by 16 million, obviously teams a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and so on, they did not have that in their budget. So it wasn't just the Packers, but a number of teams were under a salary cap crunch. But for the Green Bay Packers, they were coming off an NFC Championship loss to Tampa Bay. And while we thought there were going to be a number of changes last offseason, Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, they did everything in their power to keep the band together for another run here in 2021 this past year. Now, to do that, they had to restructure a number of contracts. We'll get to how those work and the reasons behind doing that. They also added avoidable years to a number of contracts as well. So, avoidable year, it's really Ken Ingalls. He's the Packers salary cap aficionado on Twitter. He likened it to it's the credit card of salary cap. So, if a player has 1 year left on their contract and a team adds 3 voidable years, they're not actually under contract for 4 years. These are more accounting measures as a way to spread that salary cap hit out from 1 year to 4 years in this example. But once the contract terminates at the end of its actual life, that 1 year, the salary cap charges that you've pushed to future years accelerate and come due. So it's a measure for cap relief in the present moment, but by no means is it a way to get out of any of those issues. Again, all these cap charges that are pushed down the road have to come due at some point. So by having these voidable years, again, they did these to a number of contracts, as well as restructuring a few. Green Bay was actually able to push almost $51 million worth of cap charges from 2021 to future years. And a good chunk of that 51 million, I think it was around 35 million or so, ended up being pushed to 2022. So that's where we are today. Currently, over the cap has the Green Bay Packers at $50.4 million over the projected salary cap. And the 2022 salary cap is increasing greatly. It's going from that 182.5 million all the way up to 208.2 million. So even with that big jump, Green Bay still finds himself $50 million over the salary cap. And unfortunately, that's really just the starting point. So that figure that over the cap is calculated, it doesn't bake in other costs that are going to pop up. So when calculating the salary cap, whether it's over the cap, Spot Track, wherever you get your information from, that's the top 51 contracts on the roster, the highest 51 contracts on the roster. As we all know, there are a 52nd and 53rd player on the roster. That figure also doesn't include the incoming draft class, having to pay the practice squad, any reserves for in-season spending. We've seen Brian Gutekunst bring in a few players over the years, Rasul Douglas, Whitney Merciless, Jalen Smith this year. In the past, Tyler Ervin, Jared Valdir, Snacks Harrison. I mean, you need funds in season, cap space in season, to be able to make those additions. It also doesn't include Green Bay re-signing any of their own free agents or bringing in any new free agent. So that $50 million mark that they're currently over, that's just the starting point. And by Ken Ingalls' numbers, when you bake all those additional costs in, and there are others, those are just some of the big ones to highlight. He calculates that the Green Bay Packers need to clear $71.25 million worth of cap charges before the 2022 regular season begins. And you can follow Ken on Twitter at Ken Ingles, provides just phenomenal information on these topics. So that's where the Green Bay Packers currently stand when it comes to the salary cap. And that's how they got there. The salary cap crunch from a year ago resulted in them pushing a ton of additional cap charges to this year as well as into 2023, which in order to keep the team together for 2021. And as a result, that's a part of the reason why they're currently in the cap situation that they're in. So now I want to discuss what the biggest cap hits are for this Green Bay Packers team here in 2022. Now, of that $208.2 million in cap space that they have available, $198.93 million is allocated to their top 11 players, or top 11 largest cap hits, I should say, accounts for $198.93 million of that total cap space. 95% of their available cap space is going to 11 contracts this upcoming season. So as you can imagine, as Green Bay is looking to create cap space, it's going to come from these players, whether it be via an extension, cut, perhaps a trade, if we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, or a contract restructure. So Aaron Rodgers' cap hit this year is $46.79 million. He's absolutely not playing on that deal. Zadarius Smith comes with a cap hit of $27.66 million. David Bakhtiari, $22.76 million. Kenny Clark, $20.9 million. Preston Smith is at just under $20 million. Jair Alexander's $13.29 million. Adrian Amos is $11.98 million. Randall Cobb, $9.64 million. Billy Turner, $9.24 million. Aaron Jones, $9 million. And Dean Lowry, $7.92 million. So those are the cap charges for each of those players this season. And as I mentioned, they make up, those cap charges added together make up 95% of the available cap space that Green Bay has in 2022. So when we're looking at how are they going to get under the cap space, this is where it's going to come from. And they do have plenty, as I just listed off 11 players, they do have plenty of ways to get under that salary cap figure. The important thing to remember with all of this is if Green Bay has the means, as I just pointed out, they have ways to go about it. The question is, how are they going to do so? But if they want a player back, if Green Bay wants to sign Davante Adams for $30 million, they can and they will if that's what they want. But there's trade-offs, there's give and take. If Davante Adams is back on that deal, who's not getting re-signed? Who has to be cut? Which contracts have to be restructured, extended? There's, of course, ripple effects to that, and it limits what else you can do. But just because they're in a tight salary cap situation, and Davante Adams, given that contract number of $30 million, is obviously an extreme example, but pick Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas. If the Packers want them back, they can certainly make the numbers work, but it limits what else they can do in other areas. So again, it's that trade-off, it's that balance, and that's part of the difficulty that comes with this for Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball as they're constructing a roster. So now, last part here, I want to get to contract restructures, extensions, and veteran cuts, because those are the three big ways that Green Bay is going to create cap space from those contracts and salary cap hits that we listed. And in each category, I also list a few players who could fall into those specific categories. So a contract restructure, this works when a player has at least 2 years left on their deal. If they only have 1 year left, that's when you get the voidable years. Again, it's like a credit card. Those are fake years added on for current cap relief, but all those cap charges come due when the contract terminates. And remember, those voided years, those are not additional years. Those are, on paper, they're additional years, but for the player and their actual contract status, they are not. So contract restructure, you want at least 2 years left on a deal, because what you're doing is you're taking a portion of the current cap hit in 2022 and you're just pushing it down the road. You're kicking the can down the road. Now, there are ways to go about this. And keep in mind, with this entire video, this is a 30,000 foot view of the Packers salary cap situation. This is so much more detailed and intricate than what I'm getting into and than what I even am able to understand. So just keep that in mind, of course. But typically with a contract restructure, what you're doing is you're taking a portion of a player's base salary, which counts for a cap hit that year. You're converting it to a signing bonus. And the reason you do that is because signing bonuses, you can spread that cap hit out over the life of the contract. So for example, if a player has an $8 million base salary in 2022, and they have 3 years left on their deal, the team could take $6 million of that $8 million, convert it to a signing bonus. So then you take that $6 million over the 3-year deal and you go $2 million in 22, $2 million in 2023, $2 million in 2024. So in the current year, 2022, your base salary went from $8 million to $2 million. And then you took $2 million signing bonus, added that back on. So in total, your cap hits dropped by $4 million. Your cap hits in 23 and 24, they've increased by $2 million because you're taking extra money from 2022 and pushing it into those years. So in short, that's how a restructure works. And some restructure candidates that the Green Bay Packers have include Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, as well as Jaire Alexander. In fact, Jaire Alexander will fall under the extension category. But those are 3 contracts, Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, and Kenny Clark, where Green Bay could, because those are new contracts, there's a lot, those extra years that we need, and they can take some of the current cap charges, base salary, and push it to future years to create cap space. A contract extension, pretty similar to a restructure, except you're adding years on to the current deal. So if it's a 1-year deal, you're signing a 4-year extension. Now you have 5 years that you can spread that cap hit out over. So again, oftentimes that includes taking base salary, converting it to signing bonus, so you can now spread that out over 5 years instead of absorbing it all in one. This is also a big reason why contract extensions are also so cash heavy in the beginning with signing bonuses. Players love signing bonuses. It's guaranteed money. It's money up front. It's money that hits your bank account right away. And that's why, because teams from a cap perspective have the opportunity as well to spread it out over the life of the contract. So again, extension, restructure, they work similarly. But of course, as it says in the name, you're adding years onto the deal. You're taking base salary, converting it to signing bonus, and that new money you're infusing into the contract, a lot of it is signing bonus. So again, you can spread it out over the life of the deal, thus lowering the cap hit in the current year. Some extension candidates include Jaire Alexander. I mean, you can bookmark this down as it's going to happen. He's on his 5th-year option, which comes with a $13 million cap hit. If Green Bay gives him an extension, they can lower that significantly. And obviously, there's the bonus of you get to keep Jaire Alexander in Green Bay beyond 2022. Other candidates for an extension could include Aaron Rodgers, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner. Just kind of depends on how things play out, and we're going to talk about these names in the next category as well. A veteran cut or a trade in Aaron Rodgers' case. So if a player's cap hit, and a cap hit is money that's on the books this season if that player is on the roster. The dead cap hit is money that's on the books this season, even if the player is not on the roster. Dead cap money is those signing bonuses we talked about. It's paid up front. You can spread it out over the life of the contract, but because it's money that's already been paid out, you can't just cut a player and those charges magically go away. Remember, with all of these scenarios, any cap charges that are pushed down the road, they have to come due at some point. So oftentimes a player's dead cap hit is going to be that signing bonus that's already been paid out, but spread out over the life of the contract. So if a player's cap hit is larger than their dead cap hit, so the money on the books, if they're on the roster, is larger than the money on the books if they're not on the roster, financially speaking, it makes sense for the team to move on. A real example would be Zadarius Smith. So his 2022 cap hit, as we mentioned, is $27.66 million. His dead cap hit is $12.38 million, meaning if the Green Bay Packers cut him, they actually save $15.28 million in cap space. A couple names, again, who fall into this category are Aaron Rodgers. If he were to be traded, Green Bay would receive some cap savings from that move. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner, Dean Lowry, Randall Cobb, Mason Crosby. All of those players come with larger cap hits than dead cap hits, and meaning that if Green Bay wants to move on from them for those savings, from a financial standpoint, it does make sense. Now, again, with all that said, and first off, I hope that made sense. I know that when we're discussing these numbers, these concepts via video, it can be more challenging for me to try to explain and convey what's taking place. And again, this is a 30,000 foot view of the Green Bay Packers salary cap situation. But again, I want to reiterate, these are moves that could happen, but if Green Bay wants to keep someone, they can find a way, but it is a trade-off. It's that give and take. So I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. If you like the video, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. I do greatly appreciate it. You can find this article at Dairyland Express, as long as with the rest of my work, and at Cheesehead TV. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. And if there's one thing we can say this offseason, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be a very, very intriguing, interesting one filled with a lot of question marks and uncertainty for the Green Bay Packers. And a lot of that stems from their salary cap situation. So as always, friends, I greatly appreciate you tuning in. As always, take care, stay safe, and go Pack Go.